All right, everybody. Well, it's time for the spoilers. It's time for the spoilers. And I'm hoping that you've seen the movie, obviously. Then what the hell are you doing here? And if you are checking it out and you're just looking around for spoiler reviews and you want to talk about it, please subscribe. Show a little, will you? Show a little. Go ahead and subscribe. Hit that like button. Hit the notification button. Subscribe. We got a lot of great stuff going on over here, whether it's reviews, Batman rewatches, interviews with peeps, a lot of it. So please go ahead and check it out, and let's get into this thing. I am going to be doing a full spoiler review on Monday, spoiler discussion with Winston A. Marshall and Koish Andrew, and we'll go over an hour and we'll have a whole full discussion of it. So this will be a shorter review, I think. Last time I tried to do a shorter review on a spoiler, I wound up going like 45 minutes. So I'm not planning on. I'm planning on going like 10 or 15 minutes, but let's see. All right. So as I wanted to say, if you saw my non-spoiler review, I'll go over my two criticisms, which again, in the grand scheme of this thing, this is a great movie. It's a really, really good movie. It's a really, really good movie. There's really not much that I can critique from the directing, the music, the acting, the story. There's just so much really good stuff going on in the movie. The stuff that I had mentioned, and I think it seems to be a general consensus for people who had criticisms, was the length of the film. I thought sometimes that and I guess it's maybe a criticism on the directing and the editing, is the fact that it went a little too long sometimes. There are certain shots that I thought could have been cut out. But again, Matt Reeves' vision, not mine. I think he knows better than I do. However, I would say that it was just a little long for my taste. The ending of the movie was also, when you compare it to the overall Detective 7, Zodiac, Chinatown, film noir type thing that's going on, it was more of a comic book movie ending with the whole thing that was going on with Gotham Square Garden and all of it, which I enjoyed the scene. And then I thought that the Joker scene with Riddler could have been a post-credit scene. It just felt jarring to put it in the spot that they put it in. And those are my big criticisms of the movie. There was a lot of great stuff. Robert Pattinson is a great Batman. I guess another minor criticism is that, and it's not really a minor criticism, to be honest, it's just not a lot of Bruce Wayne in this, but I don't think Bruce Wayne is developed yet. I don't think Bruce Wayne is all in not in story terms, in his own mind. I don't think that who Bruce Wayne is, the persona of Bruce Wayne, he's Batman. That's who he is as a person. He's Batman. And you see it throughout the entire thing. He doesn't know who Bruce Wayne is yet. He hasn't developed that. So that's not really that major of a criticism to me, because you see him when he's working on the computer and he's doing the research, and that's what I loved about this movie, the detective story, and trying to piece together the Riddler and understanding, Alfred trying to tell him, hey man, you gotta put on this persona. You gotta be Bruce Wayne if you're gonna be Batman also. And he doesn't want anything to do with it. He wants to just be vengeance, and this is year 2 as he's developing his and understanding what he's doing out there. And there's the introduction of Batman is done so well in this movie. It's done so well because not only do you first intro the killer first, and there's always been that in all Batman movies, like, are they just going to focus on the villain? I think there's a perfect balance between Batman and the Riddler here, and the Penguin, which Paul Dano, Zoe Kravitz, Colin Farrell, so many people are just so many great, Jeffrey Wright, so many great performances in this. And the relationship between Gordon and Batman, it reminds me, and hang with me before you go, wait, what are you talking about? The thing I always liked about the Adam West Batman when I watched it as a kid, I always enjoyed watching Batman trying to figure out things with Gordon. Completely different tone. Not even in the same galaxy. But the idea of it, the idea of them working together, and the idea of them being, that relationship, and you see it throughout. The great scene when he's like, you could have pulled your punches. He goes, I did. Batman voice, man, did that work very well. The Batman voice worked well. the essence of who Batman is, as the anger. And you see it at the end of the film. He's got to pull back a little bit. He can't just lead with hate and lead with anger and lead with fury and vengeance. He can't lead with that stuff. And he realizes that. He's figuring it out as he gets through it. The first introduction where he just likes to kick the shit out of people, man. And it's what gets him going. And that music by Michael Giacchino as it comes in, and it's just like this. And you combine that with that film noir voiceover, which works in the grittiness and the grime of Gotham as you're walking through it, and you're seeing like just how it all plays. And so this is a movie that I think you definitely have to see twice, right? After you just hearing myself talk about it and marinating all the great stuff that was in it. This one of the things that I still am trying to figure out if I liked or not. I think it's very well written, but I don't know if I like it yet, with the Selena Kyle being Maroni's daughter. Not Maroni, Falcone's daughter. I don't know. I think it's very well written. I think they set it up nice, and it's a side story that ultimately plays into this whole big thing that Matt Reeves puts together, and it's clean how it works. I think that I was way more interested in in trying to figure out what the hell is the motivation of the Riddler and why he's doing what he's doing and how they're continuing to play it. And you look at the significance of it, where he's obviously mentally damaged, but he's very, very smart, the Riddler. And he has this thing against, Thomas Wayne. And I liked where they went with Thomas Wayne. I was nervous where they were going to go with Thomas Wayne. I thought they were going to do this whole thing where Thomas Wayne was the villain and he was a bad guy overall, because they set it up in the trailer. They set you up for a few things in the trailer that they completely tricked you on. I like that. He did a bad thing, but acknowledge it, and it's a great scene with the great Andy Serkis, who's one of my favorite actors of all time. Great scene with Andy Serkis and Alfred and Bruce as they're in the hospital scene after Alfred almost dies, which I wasn't sure they were going to kill off Alfred, right? And there's so much that is said there where Bruce is like, my father was a bad dude. He was not a bad dude. He did a thing to try to protect your mother, and playing that whole thing where she had a breakdown. And they were trying to protect it, and he did it the wrong way. He got indebted to Falcone. So that's why as I hear myself say it, it's like that's where the writing comes in very, very well, because they play it in, and that ultimately just goes back to Selena Kyle and how Bruce tells she wants to kill him. And he's like, you can't. He deserves what he deserves what he's got coming to him, but not at your expense. Like don't do it. And there's so many great scenes in this movie, and so much, like the intensity, it's raw. And that's why, I don't know, I think that I like, as I said, the end of the movie, I liked a lot. And I think that once again, you see that transition with Batman where he's beating the piss out of people for the entire movie, right? And he gets a kick out of it, whether it's at the club or wherever he is, he's beating the shit out of people. But there's something that kicks in at the very end as he's just destroying one of the Riddler clones. And he takes the adrenaline shot, and he's almost going to just put this guy out. And it's like that's where the change comes in. So I think that the thing I've always wanted to see in a Batman movie that they do very well is the detective story, as I mentioned earlier. The music is perfect. The relationship between Batman and Catwoman are good because there's like this sexiness too. There's that divide of where Batman will go and where he won't go, and clearly where she will go, and he's got to try to be that balance, and she also balances him out. So I thought that their relationship was done very well. I mentioned the relationship between Gordon and Batman that works. There's the conversation of what Gotham is still trying to make of Batman. He's being allowed to police crime scenes at points. They think Gordon's crazy for doing it. So there's just the setup of this world was done very well, and we didn't need to see the murder of the Waynes again. It's certainly referenced a whole bunch of different times, and it's referenced well, and they do it well. But I didn't need to see it again. We've seen it a million times over, and we know the story. So because we've seen it so many different times, that when it's referenced, it plays. And I think that it also plays with how Paul Dano ultimately fits into all of this. And it sets up Riddler and Joker working together. I hope that doesn't happen until the third or fourth film. I don't need Joker anytime soon, and the fact that they set it up, great. Let them build off of it. Let Batman deal with another villain. There's so many great villains in the Batman universe that you don't need the Joker every single time. The Penguin, though, Colin Farrell. one of my favorite actors working today. And what he's able to do in this, he's unrecognizable, obviously, with a great makeup team, but he gets you invested in this character because they dupe you once again. They think maybe he is a rat. Maybe he doesn't have like this big kind of mob boss personality. He's the one that's going after Falcone and telling Falcone that he's a rat, and Falcone, and he's going after Falcone and and he's like, I didn't shoot. The voice, everything about it, it's so authentic to what he does. I didn't know if I was like really cared about a Penguin HBO Max show. Oh my God, I want that show now, because now you're going to be so set up from the events of the Batman leading into this. So there's a lot of great in this movie. And as I mentioned in my non-spoiler, and as I mentioned as I'm talking about this movie, it's definitely a movie that I'm going to have to rewatch and revisit, because I think that with all this stuff that I know that I've continued to think about after seeing the film, that knowing that it's longer now, am I really going to care that it's longer? Am I really going to care because I know I have all these great nuggets that I'm about to see? I love the way that the Batmobile looked. I think that there's going to be a criticism from people about Bruce Wayne. You know, the idea of Bruce Wayne, the idea that Bruce Wayne is not really present in the way he has been in other movies. And as I said earlier in the review, you have to understand, and the Riddler says it to him in the prison, that that's who you really are. So he hasn't developed the character of Bruce Wayne yet. So I think we're going to see that start to get developed as it moves on. And speaking of the Riddler, once again, as I said, I got duped a few different times in the discussion of, in the trailer. One of the big ones that I was worried about was when they make it seem that the Riddler, yeah, he knows who Bruce Wayne is. Bruce Wayne. And he says that to him a few different times. Bruce Wayne. And you're like, oh, man, he knows it already. And when you go to confront him, you see it in the trailer, you're like, he knows he's Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne. And he was the only one we didn't get. And I'm like, oh, really? Really? That's interesting. That's interesting. I didn't know that they were going to dupe us that way. They tricked us that way, and that they did that a few different times. And I think with the writing, that shows you how good of a script it was. So many different times that they got me in this movie throughout the entire time. And this little silly gripes that I have. I think that the mayor-elect, I liked her a lot, and I like the idea where she approaches Bruce and she tells him, you got to do more, but ultimately he's doing so much as Batman, but he needs to do more, again, in that persona. And I had this whole discussion with Winston afterwards, too. The mayor-elect, what she does, her character is, I got to go out there and I got to say something, which is fine. I get it. You got to go out there and you got to say something. She's got the worst social security, the worst security system ever. The Secret Service, not Secret Service, but you know what I mean. She's got the worst security detail ever. In what world does a public figure, the mayor, go out anywhere, and I don't care how erratic and how crazy it is, and they just let her go? Flank her. Silly. The fighting is really good. The action is really good. It's a brutal movie, and it's not for it's. I like that they went where Nolan's was dark and Nolan's was realistic. This is, I mean, as I said in the non-spoiler, this really dives deep into everything they promise you in that trailer. If they as I mentioned Chinatown, I mentioned Seven, Zodiac. It's all of that with a mentally disturbed lead character, and lead character also, and lead villain, because Batman ain't stable. But, and I also dug the relationship between Alfred and Bruce. They're not the same Alfred and Bruce that we're used to. Frickin' frack. They got problems, and they have to work it out, and they work it out in that hospital scene, which is a beautiful scene. So, as I said, lots to really like about it. In a spoiler review, I can't, like, that's the beauty of the critiques that I have. What can I do in a spoiler review except say, yeah, the stuff I didn't like, there was sometimes, like, the very end of it, they added that scene. It could have been a post-credit scene. There was some shots that went on way too long. There were certain things that they had, like, as they're riding around in the motorcycles at the very end, they held on it a little too long. Okay, whatever. And then the ending of the the Gotham scene just seemed like you could have put that in a Nolan movie. You could have put that, if you really cheesed it up, you could have put it in a Schumacher movie. You could have put it in a Burton movie, right? The other stuff you couldn't have put in any other movie, even Nolan. This was even too dark for the Nolan movies, and I liked that, and I dug it. So that's really it. That's my spoiler review for the Batman. As I mentioned, I'm going to have Coy and Winston on. We're going to have a full discussion, probably about an hour or so. That'll be on Monday. So I wanted to get this one up on the weekend just to talk about it a little bit more. There's a lot. I know there's so much more to talk about. Yeah, I'm going to talk about it for an hour on Monday. So please join us on Monday for the big thing. And again, if you're brand new to the channel and you want to check that out, all you got to do is just subscribe. That's all you got to do is subscribe. Hit that like button, notification button, all of it. But that's it, man. That's my review. That's my spoiler review. More to talk about, obviously, on Monday, so please join me. And I hope you enjoyed the review. Peace.